100 years ago, a bird's-eye view of any New Zealand town would have revealed a skyline dotted with towering church spires. The steeples were designed to be the highest man-made structures, reflecting the grandeur and glory of God. Nowadays, our tallest structures are attached not to churches, but to casinos and office buildings. Nonetheless, holy sites like this Mormon church in Hamilton are a constant reminder of something that has given us not only tall buildings, but tall stories too. Something called religion. To the early settlers, the unspoilt loveliness of Aotearoa was evidence of God's glory, but not the God of Tāne or Tangaroa as Maori saw it. Pākehā were determined to tame the savages with the word of God, laying an ideological bedrock for colonization. At the forefront of the battle for hearts and minds was a stern Yorkshireman. Samuel Marsden was New Zealand's greatest missionary.
Marsden was struck by the primitive attempts of the Maoris to scratch a living out of the soil without the aid of even such simple implements as axes and hoes.
He was responsible for more conversions than Don Clark.
Marsden resolved to give away a few axes and hoes to the most needy.
If you take over a place, you know, fair and square, you can do whatever you want. You know, the missionaries, they took over fair and square. They got rid of the other gods. They said, yeah, our God's better. Take it. The other people said, oh, ooga booga, ooga booga. Okay. And then, so they said, oh, no, good on them.
While many believe Maori to have been brainwashed by the early missionaries, it's also true that Maori had a thing or two to teach Pākehā. It's a popular misconception that the missionary position was invented by missionaries, who promoted it as the only holy means of coitus. In fact, it was Maori who taught missionaries the technique, along with other sexual positions such as the swing, the wheelbarrow, and the inverse lotus, known to Maori as te weka. The subject was also raised in this animated film strip from the 1930s. Tamaki may have brought a certain National Socialism to the organisation of Christian fundamentalism, but the Destiny Church was not the first bunch of Jesus freaks to mobilise as God's army.
Well, it's all over now. It's hard to believe that less than an hour ago there was something like 15 to 20,000 demonstrators in these grounds, but they weren't the sort of demonstrators we usually associate with Parliament. These were the Jesus marchers.
In 1972, Christians took to the streets of Wellington in a march for Jesus. They had the best signs money could buy and a full horn section. But the capital's non-believers remained nonplussed.
Excuse me, sir, are you going to the Jesus Festival?
No, I don't really think I am.
Then, as now, the tenants of God's Zone were not terribly interested in their landlord.
Don't give it a thought, mate. I don't. I do not believe in Jesus or any kind of religion at all.
I thought this is very reminiscent of the Germany in the 30s.
Are you a Christian?
No, I'm not. I'm a communist.
The Christians may have had their detractors, but they had safety in numbers. When the Pope visited New Zealand in 1986, it was as if the Second Coming had arrived on an aging Boeing.
A few hundred people gathered to watch as the Air Force 727 carrying the Pope arrived at Christchurch Airport.
It's quite a privilege for New Zealand because we're such a small country to have the Pope to come.
In you, we discover peace. Lord, have
Catholics from all over God's own flocked to hear the pontiff's pontifications in Christchurch, Wellington and Auckland. But despite the impressive show of faith, God smited his flock with a vicious southerly.
The sick and disabled were quickly moved to shelter until the rain had abated.
It seems that the sun is coming, is returning to us.
At the time, John Paul was considered the hottest live act in Christendom.
violence and war come from our blindness of spirit.
But for all the goodwill, John Paul didn't really trust New Zealanders, and despite enjoying God's protection, he insisted on a bulletproof Mitsubishi L200.
It's called a Pope-mobile. There's lots of standing room and seating, and there's a special clear glass cover so the Pope will be seen.
This is the actual vehicle which was modified to carry John Paul around New Zealand. It said the Pope personally insisted on a Mitsubishi L200 2.6-litre Astron 2 because of its rugged reliability and the improved handling afforded by its long wheelbase. But the Pope may have enjoyed his L200 a little too much.
The people of Maryville Court's Catholic retirement village in Salisbury Street were out early. This they hoped would be their big day. Not only would they see the Pope, but with quite a lot of luck, he would stop here and bless the village.
Maryvale's Catholics pulled out all the stops, even installing an elderly Pope impersonator on the street.
So these people really were hopeful. Their dream would come true and Pope John would stop. But when the motorcade came into view 20 minutes late, a stop looked doubtful. And sadly, that's how it was. The Pope-mobile slowed down and the Pope did give his blessing, but he didn't stop.
In the end, the Pope's visit lasted only slightly longer than a drive-by shooting. Sadly, the papal visit ended in tragedy when one of the cardinals superglued the Pope's chin to his chest after a late-night prayer session. Did you meet the Pope when he came in the 80s?
Oh, of course I met the Pope. Yeah, had him round for drinks. We went out on the town. We the bloody Pope.
Whilst the Pope never came to Taranaki, there was a famous visit by another great man with equally bizarre religious beliefs.
It's been an extraordinary experience. I have to say it's one of the best film experiences that I've had, and I've had some great ones.
When Tom Cruise came to the Naki, the locals went gaga. One woman even flashed her nungas in what is known euphemistically as the Naki wave.
Every morning I'd say, "Morning, Tom," as the chopper flew above us here. And I said one day, "Oh, blow this, he's not going to see me doing that." So I just lifted my top.
The natives were so enamoured of their new idol that they immortalised his name in school children. New Zealanders have long treated visiting celebrities as if they were gods, whether it be the Beatles in the 1960s or Peter Andre trapped inside a Georgie pie in the early 90s.
Hey, this is nice. This is real nice.
Is he better than the Beatles?
Yes.
Or the Rolling Stones?
Yes.
Wow.
Is he even better than Elton John? Do you know who that is?
No.
Right, okay.
Like Christ being carried on a cross of fame, Andre used not loaves or fishes, but relied on his miraculous six-pack, the result of his Jesuit-like 3,000 sit-ups a day. Unlike Peter Andre, Elvis never came to New Zealand, but it is believed that he was a big fan of our dairy products and would often butter his bread on both sides. This remarkable shrine to Elvis is the top tourist attraction in Hawera. This holy place has itself drawn gods in their own right. Country legend John Hoare, the Chills version 7, and that fellow from the Oddfellows ad. Bob, what are your thoughts on religion?
Religion? Oh, in a nutshell, a load of rubbish, deserving of nothing but derision and mockery.
What do I think of religion? Well, I don't try to imagine a personal God. I think it suffices to stand in awe at the structure of the world, insofar as it allows our inadequate senses to appreciate it, of course.
In 1972, New Zealand was honoured by a visit from one of Christianity's holiest relics. The Shroud of Turin arrived on a special jet direct from Rome. It was the end of a world tour, sponsored by the Vatican. The Shroud and its minders were hosted by the Catholic Church of New Zealand, and the relic was installed at the convent of the Carmelite Sisters in Mount Roskill. The relic attracted huge crowds as Christian pilgrims of every stripe flocked to see proof of Christ's existence.
Flash flooding and large numbers predicted as Christians flock to see the Shroud of Turin in Auckland. The head of the...
They may have predicted large numbers, but no one could have predicted what happened next.
How did these shrouds get into the wrong place?
Well, we normally separate the sheets, but somehow the shroud has got caught up with the convent's sheets. I spoke to Sister Mary and the manager this morning, and they informed me that the wash was a hot wash, and it appears as though the stain has come out.
It would have made a great ad for washing powder, but the wash day mix-up was a tragedy for the church. Despite extensive forensic recovery work, the shroud was never the same again.
Yes, I do think the shroud is still a valuable relic. It simply requires more faith now.
Deeply embarrassed, the New Zealand Catholic Church acted quickly, excommunicating 3 Carmelite nuns and a Bakelite nun too. Many religions believe they have a monopoly on the truth. So it's no surprise that most faiths have a long tradition of trying to convert non-believers. Hare Krishnas use cheap food to lure newcomers, or music to break our will. Scientologists use celebrity endorsements, and Catholics use powerfully intoxicating incense. But of all the faiths, there's one whose believers work harder than any other to recruit new members. And they do it using one of these.
Serve and help the Lord while I am in my youth.
Like all Mormon households, Warren's family has a weekly get-together every Monday. And tonight, everyone's focusing on what it's like to be a Mormon missionary.
Teach and preach and work as missionaries do. Like you, like you, like you.
The Mormons may have been faithful, God-fearing teetotalers, but they had a reckless disregard for the law, riding the mean streets of Hamilton without helmets or lights. The door-to-door salesman of religion,
next house.
The Mormons took their message onto the doorsteps of suburban New Zealand.
I would, from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Oh, sorry.
And that was usually as far as it got.
They've knocked on 55 doors and got inside 3 of them.
Would you be able to read the Book of Mormon and to think about it and pray about it?
I don't think so, because I don't need to find another religion. Yeah.
Their missions may have failed more often than not, but their image as God's cycle couriers became legendary and soon found its way into the popular imagination.
When I was a little bitty boy, my daddy said to me, son, one day you'll be a man.
Oh, very perceptive, Dad.
I became that man, then more than a man. You know what I am. I'm a Mormon. Yes, I'm a Mormon into fitness. I ain't no Jehovah's Witness. I'm a Mormon, not a Stormin'.
Carol.
Well, Christians have for centuries been predicting the second coming of Christ. Few could have foreseen that Jesus would return to earth not in any manly form, but in the shape of a rotund Rarotongan woman from South Auckland.
This is where I heal. Everybody come, say about 40 or 50 at a time. I'm all sitting around here.
She was a lowly cosmetics packer in Khyber Pass, a heavy drinker and a gambler to boot. But now she's claiming she's become Jesus Christ and the healer of the world.
When Ape Piho discovered she was Jesus Christ reborn, she was as surprised as anyone.
I asked that question to me 1,000,000 times. I even knelt in front of him and cried to him, why me, a very, very low person, for you to enter my dirty body?
Mangere, South Auckland, Easter Sunday and another service and healing session. It's just one of dozens of similar gatherings she holds throughout New Zealand and the Pacific Islands. Gatherings which are taped and sold to the faithful at $40 a pop.
Ape's miraculous healing powers were said to have saved 300,000, even if her methods were unconventional.
I heal through the telephone.
You heal through the telephone?
Yes.
How do you do that?
I just talk to them. They ring me. As soon as I hear the voice, I know what's wrong with them. I cure a lot of cancer. A lot. As I say, well, he's the one who's healing through me, not me.
What about AIDS?
I haven't started AIDS yet.
Even more sensational than her healing powers was Ape's claim to be a kind of transsexual Jesus, miraculously turning from a woman into the Son of God.
This is the first woman in the history of mankind that I've changed to me.
That is impossible. God must have been mad then at the first place, bringing her as a woman, and then he realized that it is wrong, so he changed her back as a male. 95%. That is impossible. I don't believe it.
Even if God was mad, it mattered little to Ape's flock, who believed her to be a kind of holy Fa'afafine.
I know it's not Mama, it's him. It's my Lord.
But reporter Mike Valentine was having none of it.
You want me to strip? Is that the way you want?
No, not particularly, because we're a family television show.
Is it possible for you to perhaps be examined by a doctor to prove it?
Who is the doctor, you ask me? Who is the doctor about?
Well, he knows, a doctor, a medical practitioner, knows more than me about a man and a woman.
This is my photo, what I used to be. Have a good look. This is what I look like now, in front of you. Is this the same person?
It's, what, 6, 7 years on?
You look at the face. I used to have round face. Do I have round face now?
The nose is very similar.
Now, he was a good poet. Christ was a bloody good poet. I don't give a damn whether he was God or not. I believe in that old thing that we're all God now and again.
Do you think he would have agreed with the virgin and a condom?
I think it's God. No. But as I say, I don't remember any offence with the virgin and the condom.
Walking around the walls of Te Papa, nearly 400 Christians rallying against the exhibit they claim is blasphemous.
When Te Papa exhibited the virgin and a condom, the God-fearing did their bun.
And this is the work of Satan, who's laughing and sneering at the Mother of God.
I quite liked it. I thought it was brilliant art. I could understand it.
I don't really, the condom sort of doesn't mean a lot to me, really, you know. Condoms. Virgins.
But the virgin and a condom wasn't the first prophylactic impropriety to promote such perplexing perspicacity. A similar controversy erupted here in New Plymouth when the infamous lawn bowl in a condom was exhibited to a horrified public. The exhibition lasted only 2 weeks before officials decided that a lawn bowl in a condom had no place in New Plymouth and sold it to Auckland art collector Adam Perori. Whether you believe in the God from Rome, the similar but slightly different God from England, or the God from God knows where, there's one God that all New Zealanders can believe in. The Lamb of God. In this, our Aotearoa, land of religion.